Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm one of the presenters for Elevate Education, and I'm going to be taking you very quickly through a GCSE English Literature paper. You'll see that I've selected the higher tier paper here, just in case, just for those students who are aiming for those absolute top marks in your GCSE English Literature. And I've gone with a practice paper, but it's the paper that was set last year for the exam last year, which was on the 18th of May last year. So this is the most recent English Literature GCSE paper in the higher tier. So what I'm going to take you through over the next few minutes or so is how to approach the first few questions in the book and some really good ways about going about tackling each of those questions. I'm also going to use references to the examiner's report and also the marking criteria for this paper, just so you know you're absolutely clued up on everything. So let's start. So, for an example today, the text I'm going to go with is Animal Farm, just because it's the most commonly answered question on this paper usually. It's also the text of this list here that I know best. So we're going to be talking about Animal Farm today. So the very first question here, which is the section on literary heritage, you only need to answer one question from this section. So it might seem obvious and it might seem really patronising, but this is the most obvious thing to pay attention to here. And we'll just go down and have a very quick look at question one, just so we know how we're going about this. And question one is assessing your spelling, your punctuation and your grammar, but most importantly it's assessing your ability to analyse text and analyse information. So let's go up again and have a look at the extract that's been given to us here. And it's really important here. I'm not going to read it out loud to you because I'm sure you can read, but we're going to, it's very important now just to have a very quick reading of this, just to make sure you really know which bit of the text you're at. Obviously you'll know Animal Farm very well anyway if you've been studying it at GCSE, so you should already know this extract, but just in case, even if you think you know it off by heart, it's really important just to read it through again a couple of times, just so you really are familiar with it. Once you've gone through it there, and though it might give you a glossary of some words here as well, but once you've gone through it, now let's go down to question 1A. And the question here is, from this extract, what do you discover about the character of Snowball? Use evidence from the extract to support your answer. Now, what quite a lot of students will do here, and it's really important that you don't do this, is they'll use this extract, but they'll also use other sections of the book. And it's really important that you don't do that, because they're just looking at your ability to analyse this extract here, and you must use evidence as well. So let's just hop over very quickly to the marking criteria for this. And they're saying here that responses may include, but you don't have to include all of these. Again, need to remember that. You can use as many or as few of these as possible. And we know here that from the text, for example, that Snowball is studious, who had studied. You'll see that there, right here. So let's just jump back into the extract. And when you find the section that we know that Snowball had studied the old book of Julius Caesar's, here we are, right there, you'll know that he's studious. So already we have a piece of information there about the character of Snowball. So write that down first of all and say we know that Snowball is studious because we know that he had studied an old book of Julius Caesar's campaigns. Similarly, the next one you'll see is educated, and that again it forms part and parcel of that exact same quote there. And you can go down through of these. A leader is one you might already have picked up on. Was in charge, launched his first attack at the head of them. You'll see again that there are so many different references in this extract to the fact that Snowball is a natural leader that you'll have drawn that out as something about his character. Now, obviously, every single one of these extracts is going to be different, and it might be different again depending whether you're maybe studying Jekyll and Hyde, Hound of the Baskervilles, whatever it is. But here, the most important thing to take away from this question is it's just looking at your ability to draw information out of this extract and understand what your quotations mean, but also that you use evidence from the extract. That's really the most crucial part of this question here. So let's jump down to question 1B now. Explore how the writer uses language in the extract to describe the battle. Use evidence from the extract to support your answer. Now, This is a slightly trickier question, which you'll obviously see by the fact that it's 12 marks here rather than 8 for the previous one. And they're not just asking you here to for your ability to analyse this extract here from Animal Farm, but they also want you, they're testing you on your vocabulary and your knowledge of literary terms. So let's have a look again for illustrative purposes at the marking criteria for this one here. So if this is question 1b, explore how the writer uses language in the extract to describe the battle. Use evidence from the extract to support your answer. Now again, exactly the same as 1a, and again this comes up in the examiner's report, but make sure you're only focusing on this extract. They don't want to know about your knowledge of the rest of the book. That comes in question 1c. For the moment, they just want you to focus on the extract again. It's not a long extract, so there's lots of stuff you can draw out of it, and you need to be really, really exact and really, really purposeful here. So again, let's have a look into here, and we want to see actually your knowledge of literary terms. So things like the Lexicon of Battle. The question is asking you on the writer's ability to describe the battle. So again, in this extract, we have words that relate to battles: campaign, defensive operations, launched, skirmish maneuver, retreat, enemies in flight, ambush, charge, every animal was at his post. So Orwell, in this extract, is using lots and lots and lots of words and lots of meanings and metaphors and so on, which describe battle, which wouldn't go out of place in a novel about the Second World War or the First World War. And there's so many things in here that make you think of a battle, even though they're just relating to a farm and farm animals. Further down, there are some very, very specific pieces of vocabulary here for literary terms. So alliteration for emphasis is a really nice one. Flung his 15 stone, sheep dropped dead. It really, really drives home the point here, especially in flung his 15 stone. It's a very, very vivid example, and that's using the alliteration of flung and 15, which really, really drive that point home. Again, it's all relating to this lexicon of the battle, and it makes the battle seem even more vivid, and it's all part of the description. Down here at the bottom, again, it's using they talk about things like the adverbs as well, adding detail and urgency. And this is a really, really important thing as well to think about here, that they're providing added detail and they're providing urgency. We don't just want to know what Orwell is using in this extract. We don't just want to know that he's using adverbs. We want to know why he's using adverbs. And the reason is that they're adding detail and they're adding urgency. Quickly, viciously, suddenly. These all add to the description of the battle. So don't just mention that he's using adverbs, but mention why he's using adverbs again here. And let's just have a very, very quick here at the marking criteria again. And again, you want to be looking at band 3, band 4 answers, because this is where you're getting the absolute highest stuff, or even into band 5 ideally. But here in band 5, you'll see that they're asking that students provide a perceptive explanation of the presented theme, ideas and setting, so that you're explaining how the writer describes the battle. Perceptive explanation of how linguistic grammatical features achieve the intended effect, so that's why he uses adverbs, why he uses alliteration, why he uses battle terms. And then finally, perceptive use of relevant examples from the extract. Back everything you write, absolutely everything up with evidence. The most important thing to remember with English literature is it's not a right or wrong question. You can't be right, you can't be wrong here, as long as you back up absolutely everything with plenty of evidence. And there's huge amounts of evidence in this extract. That's why they've picked it. So finally, let's have a look at question 1c here. In the extract, Snowball demonstrates leadership. Explore how the writer presents leadership in one other part of the novel. Use evidence to support your answer. Now you'll see that this is the most number of marks here available for this question here, as opposed to the 12 and the 8 for the previous questions. So you want to time your answering of this whole section of the exam paper accordingly. So you spend the least amount of time on 1A, because it's the smallest amount of points here, marks available for it rather, and the most amount of time on 1C, because you've got the most number of marks available for this. So this question, it's most important to really break it down. We know that this question is asking us about the demonstration of leadership here, the presentation of leadership, and in one other part of the novel here. So no longer do we want that Snowball demonstrates leadership, but we need another character from the novel. So this could be the farmer, this could be some of the other pigs, this could be Boxer the horse, whoever you want it to be. But remember again, this can only be one other part of the novel. One of the biggest complaints apparently on this exam last year from the examiners was that a lot of students chose to answer from the whole book rather than just one other part of the novel. And part can mean chapter, it can mean paragraph, it can be a series of paragraphs, but only one part. They're not looking for your knowledge of the whole novel overall. So let's go and have a look at the marking criteria for this one. And obviously this is the most loose one because there are so many different possibilities for it. But let's have a look, and I'll just read through this for you. There are many different parts of the novel for the candidates to select from in order to answer the question. Accept any valid interpretation of leadership as seen in the candidate's selected part of the novel. So this is the key word here, leadership. This is really, really what you want to be thinking about when you're answering this question. Leadership can be explored in both positive and negative ways. Candidates are most likely to select an extract to illustrate the leadership of Mr. Jones, Old Major, Napoleon, the pigs, or Boxer, but examiners should remain open to any suggestions so long as the candidate focuses on the question. This is the most important part of that paragraph here, so long as the candidate focuses on the question. Nothing else should come into it, because you're really, really trying to answer this part of the question, the fact that it's about leadership. So you can talk about anything you want in the novel as long as it's from one part and you're answering this thing on leadership. So for examples, here we're given in chapter 1, Old Major demonstrates his leadership at the meeting he calls to tell the animals about his dream. Or you could choose from chapter 2, when the pigs assume leadership, when the teaching and organisation fell naturally upon the pigs, or when they devised the 7 commandments. Or you could maybe choose from chapter 5, where Napoleon, with the dogs following him, has assumed he is in control and has decided future questions will be settled by a special committee of pigs presided over by himself. Any of these are fine, but again, look at this. One part of the novel. Please, please, please don't try and answer from the whole novel, because you'll be completely overwhelmed and you won't have enough time to answer it. And you also won't give enough detail on what you're supposed to be talking about here. So remember, really, really crucially here with this one, it's very, very difficult for me to tell you exactly what to write because you'll know the novel inside out and you'll know which part of this question you'd answer with that part of the novel. But remember, always use evidence to support your answer. Right through GCSE, right through A-level, when I studied English at university as well, this one phrase here is the most important thing that you'll remember. You always have to use evidence to support absolutely everything. Let's really quickly just look at the band criteria again here. For band 5, again, which is the highest number of marks you want to be aiming for here, perceptive explanation of the theme in one of the part of the text, that's the leadership theme. Perceptive explanation of how linguistic grammatical features achieve the intended effects, so that's things like alliteration, metaphor, adverbs, prepositions, that kind of thing. Perceptive use of relevant examples from the text to demonstrate understanding, that's the evidence, that's the most important thing. And perceptive evaluation of selected examples. They want you just not to just present evidence and present what he's doing, but also what he's achieving by doing it. I don't need to tell you about spelling, punctuation and grammar performance because again, these are things you can improve on really, really well and very, very easily. So for this final section, we're going to be now looking at the section B part of your exam paper here, and this is the section on different cultures and traditions. There are 2 questions on each text. Answer one question from your chosen text. Spelling, punctuation and grammar will be assessed in your answer. So again, I know obviously I'm sounding patronising once again, but just really, really make sure you get this bit right, because every single year there are always students who slightly mess up this part. There are 2 questions each, but you only need to answer one. And it's really nice, they'll always provide you with a selection of different questions to choose from, just in case you really are stuck for how to answer one. So the text that I'm going to focus on now, just because again it's the text that I know best, and it's also the most commonly answered text is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and we're going to focus on this first question they ask us here. So this is question 13. Explore the significance of crooks in the novel. Your answer must show your understanding of the context of the novel. Use evidence to support your answer. So this is the question. You could also answer question 14, but remember, don't answer both of them, only answer one. So this is what we're going to be focusing on. So very quickly, before we go into how to answer this, there are a couple of things that are really, really important to go into. And I very quickly just want to go into the assessment objectives, because this is something you have to remember throughout your revision and throughout answering these questions. So assessment objective 1 and assessment objective 4 are the two that are going to be really, really focusing on in this question here. So assessment objective 1 is, how do you respond to texts critically and imaginatively, select and evaluate relevant textual detail to illustrate and support interpretations. So basically this is testing your knowledge of the novel of Mice and Men as a whole, and your ability to take the question that you're being asked. So this question explored the significance of crooks in the novel, and your ability to use that and apply that to your knowledge of the novel as a whole. Then let's jump down to assessment objective 4 here, which is relate texts to their social, cultural and historical contexts. Explore how texts have been influential and significant to self and other readers in different contexts and at different times. You must be aware of Mice and Men's original purpose in the canon of English literature, when it came out, what John Steinbeck was trying to get at with the novel, what do some of the characterizations and the relationships in the novel mean, and you also need to have some knowledge of the historical and cultural context of the book in 1930s America, what race meant to people at that time, what learning disabilities meant to people at that time as well, that kind of thing. Let's also very, very quickly just have a look at the examiner's report on this question here. And you'll see that they say that successful responses were those that had developed the ideas fully, showing some insight and analysis, and had kept a sharp focus on the question. In section B responses, candidates are now integrating the social, cultural and historical context of the novel with specific examples from the text, rather than adding them as an afterthought or standalone points. So this is AO4. It's best approached through providing specific examples of characters, events and themes within the novel, rather than being treated separately by providing background information that is unrelated or often irrelevant to the question. So again, if you're talking about the historical or the social or the cultural context of Mice and Men, remember to integrate it within each answer you're giving. So for example, let's just look into it now. If for example you're referring to the fact that Crooks's race, the fact that Crooks is black, relates to his treatment by the other characters, make sure you're relating to that to how it symbolises the marginalisation of the black community. How in 1930s America, the black community had very, very few of the rights and very few of the privileges that it has now today. So let's now really quickly go into this, because this is less important, if you see what I mean, because obviously for all of the people watching this who aren't studying Mice and Men, you'll be wondering what relevance does this have. This is just about how you can integrate your answers into your references to social, cultural and historical context. So very, very quickly, let's find the important parts of the question, which explore the significance of the crooks in the novel. And you could be talking about what Crooks says and does from the whole novel, and you'll see every single point here is backed up by some evidence from the text, a quote from the text. Why Crooks has his own room, again, you might want to refer to a little shed that leaned off the wall of the barn, all of this stuff. Comments on Crooks' possessions, this kind of thing, and his interaction with other characters, particularly people like Candy, Slim and Lenny, who are the people that interact with him most, and then later on Curly's wife. But make sure that you're integrating all of this with the social, cultural and historical awareness of the novel. So comments about the American dream are really, really good here. Crooks has become cynical and dismissed the idea. I've seen hundreds of men and the same damn thing in their heads, and never a goddamn one of them gets it. So he has an awareness of his social, cultural and historical context, and you need to show that as well. Whilst we might have moved on 60, 70 years past the events of this novel, we need to show how we approach the character of Crooks differently from how readers would have at the time. And then let's just have a look at how you can achieve these absolute top marks in AO1, so these are the really, really high marks here. You need to provide a perceptive explanation of theme character, so that's the treatment of crooks. Perceptive use of relevant examples, that's the evidence from the text. And perceptive evaluation, again, it's not good enough to just say that he lives in a barn or that other characters treat him badly. We need to show what John Steinbeck is doing by using that in the text. And again, let's have a look at AO4, the relation to the social, cultural and historical context, and let's have a look at how to have the highest marks in that. You need to provide a perceptive explanation of theme character within the context of the novel, explanation of the connections between the text and the social, cultural, historical context, so what we've just been talking about basically, and perceptive use of examples relevant. Always back everything up with evidence. Absolutely everything needs to be backed up with evidence, especially in this question when you're trying to answer on the whole text. It's not like question 1 where you're just answering one section. This is the whole text, and it's testing your knowledge of the text and how to apply it to your knowledge of how to answer the